Hello, so I want to give an update on what we've been doing on Ladder of Growth. I know I've not given an update for a few weeks because of holidays and everything, and also there's been a lot going on behind the scenes. So the focus at the moment on Ladder of Growth is to build out two different funnels, for want of a better word, because we've got two very specific audiences that we're developing an offer and experience around, and that is the therapist in terms of their own growth journey, their own resilience, their own development, so that they can be the best therapists that they can be in terms of delivering high quality work and being happy and having a sustainable work the work that they do is sustainable, right? The other one that we're working on is the anxiety one. Now, this is a really, really huge one. And the more we work on it, the more it kind of grows. And so there are lots of things that we had planned that have slipped because the more we develop the anxiety work, the more we realize how much more we can do. And so that's what I want to talk about today, because there's so much that's coming out of the work that we're doing on anxiety that I really want to share that with you so you can sort of understand what's going on. So let me just back up a little bit. So the anxiety work that we're doing is really we've developed an assessment that helps you to understand what is driving your anxiety. So we've mapped 10 categories of anxiety, and this is based on all the work I've done with head trash over the last decade or so. And so what this really is helping people to do is to better understand their anxiety and what is driving it. So when we're doing an assessment, we will tell you on these 10 categories of anxiety, which are the ones that are really driving it out of all those categories so that you can focus your attention on the culprits that are responsible for the bulk of your anxiety. When you pair that up with head trash work and using head trash clearance, this gives you a very clear runway and roadmap in terms of getting rid of your anxiety for good, right? And so I've just published a book that tells you exactly how to do that called, guess what? Clear your anxiety for good, right? So, and within the book, we share the ladder of growth assessment on that. So this is a really powerful assessment. And as we've been testing it, this is why this project seems to be expanding, is that we've learned so much through testing it with people. And of course, that's part of the reason why we test, right? So one of the things that came out reasonably, I don't know, maybe a month ago, just before the holidays hit, was one of the people we tested, which she was struggling with answering some of the questions on our assessment. So the assessments are typically multiple choice, where you answer and you pick one of five answers. And she was like, well, I behave like this, but I feel like this in that situation. And so this is indicating I might answer A, but I also could answer D, depending on whether you mean how I feel about this or how I actually behave. And I was like, well, that's interesting. So we've ended up developing the whole model further, which has meant we've separated out the way that people feel internally about a situation and the way that they execute or behave around a situation. And what this has highlighted has just been a bit of a game changer. I don't know. I get really excited about this because what this has highlighted to me, especially when I put my head trash hat on, is that when there's a gap between the way that you feel about a situation versus the way that you execute, that indicates that you're not aligned, right? If you feel the same way and act in accordance with the way that you feel, then you're aligned. So let me give you an example. So for example, if you are requiring to make a decision, and this is a huge part of anxiety, is feeling stuck and not able to make a decision or move forward, that decision paralysis, where you overthink, you draw up loads of like comparison tables, you think it through, you don't want to make a mistake, you procrastinate because the decision carries a lot of anxiety. But if you're in an organization, maybe a founder or a CEO or a leader, you can't not make the decision. You have to make the decision, right? That's required. You need to execute. But the internal cost of doing that could be really, really high. So you might therefore spend hours pondering it. You might revisit it time and time again. So it's sapping your productivity. You might be up all night thinking about it. So your sleep is compromised. The internal and emotional cost for you making that decision is very, very great. So therefore, understanding the difference between how you feel about making that decision and how you actually make the decision gives us some really good material to work with from an emotional resilience perspective, from a head trash perspective. Because what I see there is an opportunity to do the work that means that somebody can actually make the decision without all the overthinking, without that procrastination, without the sleepless nights, where they're able to just see a situation, see what's required, what the decision needs to be, and then just make the decision, right? Turn that into from a 3-day event that's come at all this drama and internal, to just a 10-minute, yeah, make the decision, what's the information, bish, bash, bosh, done, right? That's what somebody in a leadership position needs to be able to do, not drag themselves through the mud in the process. So, what is the impact of this gap, right? That is where burnout starts. So, this anxiety assessment has now become a burnout risk assessment, which gets me really excited because in the corporate space, in the workplace, this is really important information to get a heads up on. And so we're now really developing that further with the lens of it being a burnout risk assessment rather than simply just an anxiety assessment. So we do have what this anxiety assessment has enabled us to do is we now have different ways of providing results with the same kind of inputs using the same core model, but actually depending on what you want to give you the level of detail, the type of reporting out deliverables that are relevant to what you want to find out about. You know, if somebody is wrestling with their anxiety and they're having lots of sleepless nights and they have panic attacks and they have all of that, they're not necessarily that interested in the level of detail that might come with the burnout risk assessment. So we need to make that very clear that that's for a very specific audience. And that audience is probably teams, leaders, HR, companies, somebody in a position where they're earning money. Like there's somebody that I worked with recently, and this is a classic. You know, he's a six-figure earner, director position, responsible for driving the business forward, and to get the heads up that he was heading for burnout before it actually happened would have been really useful because then you can take steps to avoid it. If you're the main breadwinner, if the family relies on your income more than somebody else's, if you have lots of commitments and you cannot afford to put your job at risk and you feel like you might be burning out, understanding that in advance before you actually burn out would be really useful information because now you can take steps to mitigate it and avoid it entirely, especially if you work with head trash stuff, right? So yeah, the burnout risk assessment has come out of that, which is almost like a separate project in itself. But back to what else we've been doing around the anxiety. So we've also understood that obviously a lot of people with anxiety would not be able to, are not comfortable having lots of information coming to them about what's going on because that can feel overwhelming. So to really simplify it, so to only provide the level of information that people feel comfortable for, that have asked for. So that's meant that we've thought about what kind of information do certain people with the anxiety, what are they looking for? What do they need to help them get through the level of anxiety that they're at? And if they want more, they can have it, but not to assume that everybody wants that. So we've really thought about the products, the offer that comes out the back of this. Like, what is the report? What's the information that people are asking for to better understand their own anxiety and to think more about how we deliver that. The other part of this is that what this is all doing for us is demonstrating not only to ladder of growth, but is to other companies is that what a brand partnership looks like. So the anxiety, the way that we're working with the anxiety model is in effect a brand partnership with Head Trash. Now, obviously, I'm the CEO of both, founder of both. But what we're wanting to do is to demonstrate if you want to use one of our ladders and incorporate it into your ecosystem to demonstrate the effectiveness of your method or approach to show your audience or your customers a way, like give them a way of proving that your work works, that it's effective, then that is going to carry a lot of weight in today's world, especially when a lot of people, let's say if you're selling online courses or online programs, where a lot of people are moving away from that, they want more. Being able to demonstrate to them that the confidence that you have that your work, that your approach, that your methodology, that your IP does work will carry a lot of marketing weight. So now let me just put my head trash hat on and speak to you from that perspective as I've been incorporating the assessment in the ecosystem, because this has also been a journey for me as founder of Head Trash. By incorporating the assessment, so I've developed an anxiety program for those that really want to do the work and get rid of it, but not by using a practitioner, by having it self-led. So we've added the ladder of growth assessment and enabled people to do before and after measurements. At the before, they understand where their drivers are, what to focus on, and then the Head Trash program enables them to really hunt down the information that they need based on their own assessment. And then we're offering them another assessment for them to do once they've done the work, once they've started, so they can start tracking the progress. Now, the value of that in terms of a personal development program is huge because now you can demonstrate and give your customers a way of measuring the work that they're doing with your work, with your offer, with your program, with your method. And that means that they can remain motivated, they can see what's working. But obviously, you're only going to want to do that if you have high confidence in your work, right? And obviously, if you're in this game of personal development, then the chances are that you do. But being able to communicate that confidence through an assessment to your customers is really powerful. And I really got a sense of that when I was working on doing the sales piece, understanding the pricing, the value, talking to people who were looking at doing this kind of work, because that one element enabled me to really elevate the pricing and the perceived value of that program significantly by about 40% in terms of value terms, actually. That is not insignificant, right? So incorporating this measurement tool that is very transparent with your audience, with your customers, really adds a lot of value. Now it's monetary as well as perceived value from the customer to your offer and to your work, to your IP, to your method, to your brand. And this is really important in today's age where there's so much shift going on in the way that customers are consuming content, in the way that customers are buying digital programs, digital content from personal development brands. And adding this can really help you to differentiate versus what else might be out there in a very crowded marketplace. What this has also enabled us to do is to create other offers within the ecosystem that weren't really available or certainly appeared to be, that didn't suggest themselves until we incorporated the ladder in the anxiety ecosystem. So we've also managed to create, let's say, an introductory offer to bring people in at the front end that can bring them in slowly. So really bring them on that journey slowly rather than into the deep end where they might not be ready for that. So the ladder, because we now have more of an understanding of that growth journey as they walk through and grow on anxiety, we can now really isolate and develop offers at those stages that maybe we didn't have the visibility of before having a ladder model for it. So all of this, where are we going with this from a ladder of growth perspective, is that we want to find more personal development brands that want to incorporate a ladder within their brand ecosystem so that they too can benefit from this increase in perceived value of what it is that they offer. And so there are two ways really that you can do that. There's one way you can take one of our ladders that we've already done and then just adopt it, adapt it, tweak it for your brand ecosystem. So this is very much like the anxiety one that Head Trash has taken the ladder model and it's basically adapted it and made it fit the Head Trash ecosystem. So what happens with the ladder is we've always got growth moves as part of the ladder because you're not, this is all about growing as a human. So it's all very well knowing where you are on a growth trajectory, but what you really want to know if you're interested in growth is what do I have to do next? So that's what our growth moves are. So we in the anxiety model for Head Trash, all the growth moves are Head Trash offers. When we isolate and strip out Head Trash and make it just about ladder of growth, then obviously then it becomes more generic. But at any other brand who has, let's say, anxiety as part of their ecosystem of their work, could then put their own offers within those growth moves. So you can take a current ladder and adapt it in that way. Or another thing that we've done at Head Trash is develop your own ladder that is unique to you, that is exclusive to you, that is specific around your IP, your method, your offers, your whole ecosystem. So we've also done that for Head Trash, and we've got a Head Trash ladder. And that is more expansive than simply the anxiety journey, but really looks around all the things that we do at Head Trash. So those are the two key ways that we can partner with you if you are a personal development brand to incorporate this growth model, which is backed by consciousness research and human growth, to see how that shows up with the work that you do. By combining the experience that you have with the way that you see people grow and transform on your transformation journey, we can wrap that around the ladder of growth model so that your growth journey is now has an alignment with the way that we shift when we shift consciousness and raise our level of consciousness, which is something that is very, very consistent, right? This is really exciting for us. So what we're doing, this is why things have slowed down somewhat at Ladder of Growth, because I need to then be in my head trash founder mode to really put this, really put the ladder, integrate it fully within what we're doing within the anxiety ecosystem so that I can demonstrate exactly what that looks like and show other personal development brands what this looks like. So they can get their head around it, because it's always nice to see, well, show me an example. What does that look like? Well, here you go. And so that's what we're doing. That's what the last 2 weeks has really been about. We're still doing a lot of work around this. But what this has really shown me is the growth of Ladder of Growth, the potential of Ladder of Growth, and that is really, really exciting. So yeah, that's all I'm going to say for this week. But if you're interested in having a conversation around any of this, then just reach out, and I'm always up for a conversation. So until next time, bye for now.